Okay, so here is a video that I just decided to record. Unfortunately, due to the noise, I wasn't able to
in a quarter mile, turn right onto
have like good audio, so I'm probably going to be voiceovering over this. But it's a Rheem repair, a warranty repair. They dispatch us out with the warranties, and I think they pay Mike the full price. But I like them a lot. They're very, very simple. It's just replacing parts usually. I mean, I feel like every time it's been replacing the elements on these electric heaters. And any issues, just call Rheem. They answer right away. They send parts as soon as they can, and they're just always super easy to deal with. It's like one of my favorite things is doing these Rheem calls. They're just so easy, and
turn right onto
like there's no real stress. I don't know, but hopefully you enjoy watching the video. Like it if you do, and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Okay, so at this point in the call, I had already been given the parts by the homeowner. I wasn't exactly sure what I needed to do or replace, but he handed me elements, so immediately I told him I'm gonna have to close the tank off and you won't have hot water, which he didn't anyway. But I hooked up the pump, started pumping into the shower next door, and I just started to take a look at everything after taking the covers off, and you could see everything was soaked. So the reason they're being replaced is because they were leaking. And here I am loosening up the electrical connections coming into the upper element. The tank's draining down, so there's going to be no water in the top, so I can get this one done. I'm using my new Klein screwdriver too, which I absolutely love. It has all of the different heads and sizes built into it, and the tip is extending. I loosened up the bottom element too and got those connections out. Even if I'm not going to pull the element out, I could disconnect the electrical connections while I have the tool in my hand. And one of the things that does stink is how much time you have to just kind of sit and wait while the tank drains. But I went to the truck and got the cleanest towel that I had with no grease on it, just to wipe everything down. I hate working with water and electric and worrying about whether or not there's going to be an issue or a short or something when I turn power back on. So I'm just trying to dry it off as best as possible. And here you can see these are foam insulators that they put over top the electrical connections, and they just soak up water. You could see how much I'm just wringing out of them. But I tried to get these as dry as possible, again, because that's where the electrical connections are. And I don't like to work with water and electric together, so just trying to get it as dry as possible while I wait for the tank to drain. And here you can see I pick up the actual control for this, and again it's just completely soaked with water. I'm not really sure how this is working at all. The customer said that they would turn it on and it would work for a little. It's super hard to believe, especially when you can see what happens when I pull out the elements. But just drying it off, making sure it's as dry as possible, just wiping the floor up here, and even just drying off the screws, because again there's just not much to do while it's draining down. But I was pretty happy with how dry I was able to get everything. You can see this is the lower cover, water droplets there, and once I get this all dried up, we can continue with working on everything else. These are the covers that go between the electric and the insulation, which don't look like they do much, but I'm sure they help a good amount. And here comes all the hate. I don't have the socket size for these elements. I keep meaning to get it, but I use my Knipex Cobra pliers, and I've never had any issue with it. Maybe it takes a few seconds longer to pull the element out, but it works with no issue for me, so it's just kind of what I've been doing. Sure, I'm chewing up the threads, but it's an element that's being pulled out and thrown in the garbage, and the new one is just being put in. They shouldn't be pulled in and out to begin with, so I really don't see any issue with it. But as soon as I get this out, you are going to see how insane this element looks. Nuts. Holy crap. That is insane. Used to have a coil on it, and this is all that's left. It's in there somewhere. Wow. Let's see what this one looks like too. So I plugged the pump back in, continuing to drain for that lower element, but they always put the O-ring right on that black plastic so you can't see it. And I fell for it this time. I really thought they were missing, but pulled the O-ring out, got it where it needs to be, and then I could tighten it into place. It is a little bit tricky getting the elements in place. You kind of need to keep pressure on the bottom of the element as you screw it in, because the weight tries to pull the bottom of the threads out of the socket that they screw into. Just wiped this down a little bit while I had a little bit more access. Since element was out, it gives you a little bit more room to get your fingers in. But here you could see, put that element in place, and you can see my thumb on the bottom of it because I'm trying to put a lot of pressure towards the bottom, and you can see I catch it with no problem. I know it's known that it's tricky to get these in, and my brother mentioned that at his A.O. Smith training class that they showed him a particular way to get that in, but I got it in no problem, and now I'm tightening it up with those Knipex Cobra pliers. You can see I slipped right there, but I got it in without any issue, got it nice and tight, and then was able to move on to the next one. And here is that plastic cover that goes between the insulation and the electrical connections. It has a little like snap into the top, and then it has two little snaps on either side in the middle, and just kind of made sure it was nice and secure. I hit that reset button because that can only be reset when power is off, and I know it was tripped because everything was soaked with water. And just making sure again that that insulation is dry before I slip that in, patting it down on the towel. I wringed it out beforehand, and you can see there no water came out, but popping this one into place in the bottom, and then there's one in the top, and in between the two of them is that little connector that goes to the control. And again, this one was dry, popped it in, and we were good to go on those. Here's that control, which this was tricky to record because I needed both my hands to do it, but just a 4-pin connector, a Molex connector I believe it's called, and it just snaps into place like any other plastic electrical connector. I did notice a little bit of discoloration on the bottom of it, and I think the camera, picked it up for a second there. I assume that some water in there maybe caused some burning, but it looked to be in okay shape, so I just reconnected it. And got 2 screws, one on the top, one on the bottom. I'm trying to catch the top one right now, and once I catch the bottom one, I'll tighten that one in with my screwdriver, and then I'll tighten the top one in. No reason to that, it's just what's easiest for me to do. And that's pretty much it for replacing the upper element. It's a fairly straightforward job. I mean, there's 2 wires to each element, and it's just pulling the old one out and putting the new one in. And once I got them both nice and tight, I took a look just to see how much flow I was getting out of the pump. Sometimes it kind of dies down a little bit as it gets to the end, but still had some nice good flow, so there was a lot more to drain. And I took this opportunity to actually run up to the van and grab my Milwaukee shop vac. And you could see here, I'm just vacuuming up all the water that's sitting in that pan that the water heater is placed in. And there's some sludge and gross stuff in there, some bugs in it, so just trying to use my time wisely. Got that cleaned out as best as I could. Can't be perfect, and just kind of keeping everything dry down there will keep the bottom of the casing from just completely rusting out. I want this to at least look as best as it can and have its integrity. It's not too old of a heater, and they're new homeowners, so I'm just trying to make everything as best as possible. Trying to kind of vacuum out that insulation too. And here you could see inside there is the element just sitting in the bottom of the tank, and I tried to pull it out, but I couldn't get it out. But that was it. Turning power back on, a little bit nervous when I did that, but it didn't trip. And it's an old GE panel. I don't know that I've ever seen one like this before, but I made my way back down, and the homeowner had some questions, but got the lights on, so everything's good to go in my eyes. I know I did the best job that I could, and it's working properly. Okay, and I've restored power. Upper element is on. When the tank is cold, it only kicks on the upper element, and I did just call Rheem and confirm that and let the homeowner know that currently it's operating properly. No water, so should be all set and good to go.